Hey guys, Zack here, and this is my review of Danny Phantom. Okay, so this episode, King Tuck, essentially the premise is in this episode, Tucker is frustrated because nobody's listening to him. And essentially, that is the entire premise. And, it kind of snowballs because of that. To the point where Tucker accidentally wakes up in a ghost that also wants to kind of take advantage of the fact that nobody's listening to Tucker. But we'll get to that. But in any case, the episode opens up with it being revealed that Tucker is trying to run for class president. And as we've established, nobody is actually listening to him. Obviously he's trying to run his campaign about succeeding through technology, and obviously his entire point is to bring a brighter future through technology. That is what his entire platform is based on. But of course, nobody is really listening to him, and of course Tucker is frustrated because he's trying to run. He can't really run a successful platform as class president if he's being ignored. And of course, both Sam and Danny are his campaign managers. Neither of them are really listening to him either, which of course frustrates him. But of course, then we find out that his rival person who's running against him is in fact Dash. And we find out that Dash is essentially, what we find out is that Dash is essentially leaning through brute force rather than really trying to lead with the actually trying to do any proper leadership skills. Essentially, what's going on is when we find out is that Dash is just pretending to bully everybody, and his only campaign thing is that he's just being like, who cares what Tucker's campaign is? We're gonna have a better one, and that is essentially the entire campaign. He has no campaign, but because he's against Tucker's campaign, that means he has a campaign. Which of course nobody wants to listen to Dash either, but Dash winds up winning in the polls because he keeps threatening bodily harm on all the students, which of course makes them realize, oh, Dash for president, all these other things, and of course Tucker just remarks that kind of sucks, that he's kind of has to struggle with a little bit with Dash, and obviously putting up with the fact that Dash is running his campaign around Tucker's, and is frustrated that nobody's listening to him. It's this point where obviously Sam and Danny point out the obvious problem that Tucker's campaign is running around the idea of bringing out the technology uprising, which they point out might possibly scare some people. And they do point out that they'll definitely need to figure out how to get the Neanderthal vote for him. So, of course, Tucker points out that he doesn't want them to, change anything for his campaign slogan, because as he points out, he is currently happy with his campaign slogan. He wants to win on his own merits, and not because he conforms to whatever sort of thing that the student body wants him to run for. But by this point, Sam and Tucker have already started drafting up new ideas about different things, which Tucker, of course, doesn't approve any of, except for the miniskirt Fridays, which he does kind of like. But he does point out his obvious frustration, but also points out that that if they are going to write the campaign, they need to they need to make it sound like something he would actually say. Which of course they decide to leave and go to the drafting board. But in any case, Tucker is visibly frustrated. But it's at this point where he kind of doesn't really get the opportunity to do anything, because he's suddenly attacked by a giant iguana ghost around the school, which starts rampaging through the place. And of course, he immediately goes to Danny and tells him to use his ghost powers to fight back against the ghost that he saw. But Danny and Sam are of course not paying attention. They're currently drafting up Tucker's campaign speech to make it more appealing to the general audience rather than anything that Tucker would actually write or say. Which of course is frustrating him, especially since he's trying to be a little urgent, like, hello, Danny, ghost, do your thing. There's a ghost here rampaging through the school. Of course, Danny eventually doesn't pay attention to him, and too late, Danny realizes that there is in fact a ghost at the school, which knocks over a tree and nearly hits them. And And of course, this is this point where Danny goes to deal with it, and Tucker points out that he's finally told Danny that yes, there was indeed a ghost. At which point, Danny proceeds to respond, "Why didn't you say something?" Which of course is funny and ironic because he did say something. But in any case, the next day, again, Tucker's still not being listened to. They're currently on a field trip to the local museum where they are learning about the dynasty of the Egyptian pharaoh King Dolaman, who we find out ruled Egypt many years ago. And Tucker makes a joke about how Dolaman, more like Dolaman, less Dolaman, and more like man is this Dole. And of course, nobody cares about his joke. But then Dash does the exact same joke and proceeds to threaten everybody with bodily harm again, which of course everybody laughs at him. Of course Tucker is frustrated that nobody once again is listening to him. But we do also find out from Lancer that he used his staff of the that King Dolaman used his staff of the Scarab to kind of rule over Egypt. And he then proceeds to lead them to the next room, where of course he was once again where Tucker's of course venting his problems to Sam and Danny, but neither of them are listening and walk off. At which point, with their gaze clearly fixated on something, and Danny demands that they at least look at him when he's talking to them. But it's this point where they reveal that they are. At which point, we actually get to see King Dolaman, and it turns out that King Dolaman is a spitting image of Tucker. So I'm not going to picture him, because if you know what Tucker looks like, you know exactly what King Dolaman looks like. He looks exactly like Tucker. But, and of course we find out at this point that that we find out that there's also an old sarcophagus sitting underneath King Dolaman's portrait. And Mr. Lancer explains that there's actually an old legend regarding the sarcophagus, because the sarcophagus has a mirror built into it. And he goes on to explain how legend says that when the visage of his king looks into the mirror, the spirit chain within Hotep Ra would actually rise again once more. And of course, is this point where Quan then proceeds to joke with Tucker, telling him that maybe he should look inside of it, pointing out that maybe he'll get rid of one of the pimples on his face. At which point he laughs and walks off. And of course, at this point where obviously Tucker is, despite Quan then proceeds to look into the mirror, and then proceeds to remark that then proceeds to wonder what he's talking about. At which point, the mirror then proceeds to activate and opens the sarcophagus, and of course, Hotep Ra immediately emerges, and Tucker's of course blown free from the initial coffin opening. So Danny of course has to deal with Hotep Ra, but quickly discovers that Hotep Ra is he exclaims that he is risen. At which point Danny proceeds to point out that he doesn't know how he got out, but he's going back into his sarcophagus where he belongs. At which point they battle for a bit, but quickly becomes apparent that Hotep Ra has a bit of an advantage over Danny, pointing out that he is a little bit older, he hasn't exactly lost his touch with fighting, and he quickly overpowers Danny, and also winds up accidentally trapping Sam inside of the overturned lid of his sarcophagus when she comes to Danny's aid to try and fight him. And initially it seems like Hotep Ra is going to be too much for Danny, but eventually Tucker decides that he's seen his friends getting picked on by the ghost, decides he has enough, and climbs out from his hiding spot where he got knocked over to tell the ghost to leave them alone. And of course the Hotep Ra demands to know who's ordering him. At which point he sees Tucker, and believing him to be King Dolaman, he immediately kneels into a bow and swears his undying fealty to Tucker, which of course points out that he will be his loyal servant, and that's whatever Tucker says he will do it as his command. At which point Danny decides to take the opportunity to blast Hotep Ra away from Tucker, which makes Hotep Ra retreat and disappear. And of course Tucker is a little bit confused, wondering why Danny would do that, pointing out that, it could have been cool to have a servant, but Danny points out that something about it didn't sit right with him, so he tells Tucker that he's probably better off not listening to Hotep Ra and letting him be his servant. At which point the two of them then leave to go rejoin the tour. unaware that Sam has actually, that they still have left Sam stuck underneath the sarcophagus lid, and then they go back to go get her off screen. Meanwhile, the next day after this, they are walking to school, placing their cards over the flyers for Tucker's new thing, and apparently what Tucker finds out, much to his frustration, is that once again Sam and Danny have not listened to him and have decided to go ahead with their campaign to make Tucker more likable to the lowest common denominator, which is the campaign you can't spell fully without F. At which point we find out that what they've done is they've taken Tucker's likeness and they've photoshopped it so that he's holding a paper so he's holding like a term paper with a failing grade on it, which of course Danny is frustrated. Which of course Tucker's frustrated at both of them, pointing out that that isn't what they wanted, and pointing out that he told them what he wanted, and that they're still not listening to him. Pointing out that the obvious thing is that he obviously thinks that the campaign will make him look like an idiot. He doesn't, and he's obviously not an idiot. He's as nerdy as they come, as he puts it. But he's of course frustrated about the fact that they didn't listen to him. But they of course point out that it's not a big deal. Pointing out that obviously they point out that they don't want that Tucker's kind of overreacting a little bit, and they think he's overreacting a little bit. So they point out that it should help him with his numbers, pointing out that they obviously want him to win. They very much want him to win, so they're not, which is why they're just running whatever campaign they feel like, which of course again annoys Tucker. But they leave, pointing out that they still have plenty of flyers that they need to put up. At which point we find out that Tucker has actually taken up Hotep Raw's idea of Hotep Raw being a servant, and of course we find out that he has Hotep Raw do a couple of things for him. Case in point, bring him his backpack and have him and feed him grapes whenever he wants, specifically. But of course he does vent his frustration to Hotep Raw, telling the mummy ghost that his friends don't listen to him, and he's frustrated about the fact that Hotep Raw seems to be the only one that's listening to him. And Hotep Raw explains that yes, that Tucker will have no problems with Hotep actually listening to him. So he explains that yes, he understands his frustration. But of course Tucker, in the meantime, does point out that he just wants to win the elections. At which point he sees Dash and Quan placing posters over his posters, and pointing out that it would be nice if they didn't actually do that. He proceeds to vent that it would be nice if Hotep Raw got rid of them. At which point Hotep Raw summons a swarm of locusts to chase Quan and Dash off, with them no longer wanting to post posters in that area. And of course Tucker is happy about that, but. And of course points out that he's very happy that Hotep Raw is around to do his bidding, and of course Hotep Raw remarks that he's more than happy to do it. At which point Tucker proceeds to walk off, unaware that Hotep Raw has sinister intentions. As we find out, Hotep Raw points out that he's only willing, once Tucker's gone, that he's only willing to do Tucker's bidding for now. We find out that eventually his end goal, that he explains to Tucker that his end goal is to make Tucker's domain to rebuild Doloman's empire and create it and recreate the world in Tucker's own image, which of course Tucker points out is fine, but he doesn't really want that for himself right now. At which point he leaves. But at which point it's revealed that actually Hotep Raw's plan is to rebuild the kingdom with Tucker as a puppet figure. Essentially, is what he explains. That once Tucker has taken over the world, he plans to rule for himself. Which and of course he then proceeds to reveal that he hit the staff of the scarab inside his mummy wrappings, and is prepared to do what he believes he needs to do to actually fulfill his end goals. At which point, Tucker is currently goes to his locker when he sees Hotep Raw again, who emerges from his locker, and Tucker immediately tells Hotep Raw to hide, pointing out that somebody could easily see him. But it's this point where Hotep Raw remarks that he's only there to drop something off, at which point he gives Tucker the staff, which of course Tucker doesn't fully understand why Hotep Raw is giving it to him, but pointing out that it's from the museum and it's most likely stolen. But Hotep Bra explains that it obviously belongs to King Dolaman, and since Tucker is King Dolaman in a way, he points out that it obviously belongs to him. And Tucker, with no other real idea of what to do, accepts it. At which point, Tucker becomes a little bit more arrogant. He essentially what happens is the staff overtakes him and turns him in, and kind of causes him to have a holier than thou attitude, like he thinks he's actually royalty now. Which and of course it's at this point where he walks up to Sam and Danny, who do note he's acting differently. They note that Tucker seems to be acting a little bit more snobbish than he usually is, and Danny of course does note the staff and points out that Tucker shouldn't have taken that from the museum, but Danny tells Tucker that he really should have listened to him about how the staff and Hotep Bra were dangerous, but of course Tucker snaps back that it was like all the other times Danny quote unquote listened to him. He explains that Danny hasn't been listening to him at all, so why should he listen to Danny? At which point he storms off to the auditorium to give his election speech, with Danny remarking that he doesn't really like any of this. But in case he and Sam sit down to watch the debate, and it is of course a debate between Tucker and Dash, and of course Tucker initially gets up to get his speech, holding the staff, but quickly discovers that nobody's listening to him, as established throughout the episode. He gets increasingly frustrated, and eventually, and this is what Hotep Bra wants secretly. He wants Hotep Bra to Hotep Bra wants Tucker to let the staff overtake him and feel his anger, and eventually Tucker does give in to the staff and uses it to silence the entire room, with him of course demanding that when he speaks, everything is to be silent, and he's sick and tired of nobody listening to him, and tells them that those things are going to change around here, and that everything is now as he commands it. Which of course Sam points out to Danny that it's probably his cue, and Sandy immediately hides inside the auditorium to go ghost, and goes to go confront Tucker, trying to take the staff away from him, telling him that's clearly corrupting him. But Tucker tells him to let go and tells him to be silent, pointing out that nobody should dare lay a hand on him. At which point Danny is suddenly transported to a gladiatorial arena with a gladiator ghost trying to attack him. And of course Danny has no idea how he got there, nor does he know what happened and what caused him to wind up there. All he knows is that now he's fighting for his life in a gladiatorial arena, which he has no idea what happened. But which winds up being persisting through a good part of the episode after this point. But meanwhile, Tucker declares that was only a warning, and that the worst is yet to come, and that if they could continue to not listen to him. At which point he then proceeds to use the staff to pull everybody into an Egyptian-style city, which is this massive Egyptian realm, of course, and everybody is now wearing Egyptian clothes, which of course everybody is a little confused about, pointing out that they don't really know what's going on. While Sam admits that the clothes are cute, she does go to confront Tucker, telling him that he needs to stop because he's hurting people. But Tucker of course demands that she is to be silent. At which point he and Hotep Bra proceed to reveal more Hotep Bra than anybody else, but still, Hotep Bra and by a lesser extent Tucker proceed to explain that from now on they're all going to work for him, and then they're all under his control. With Hotep Bra proceeding to point out that he should really have him get to work on building a Sphinx, explaining that when the Sphinx is complete, his full power will be arranged. And Tucker, thinking that that's a great idea, does start ordering everybody to go and work. And Mr. Lancer is of course one of the people working on it. He's obviously struggling with it because he's a bit of an older man. And while comically, Dash and Quan are moving stones, and they remark that it's going to take forever. And also make a very ironically sad joke. They make a very sad joke where they remark that they're not supposed to listen to somebody they bullied in high school till they're 30. But also admit that neither of them are probably going to make it to 30 with how Tucker is treating them. So, kind of a funny but messed up joke. But But in case Tucker is just admiring his staff, and he has since had Paulina and Star work on massaging and cleaning his toes and cleaning his feet. And what we find out is that Tucker apparently does not trim his toes, as Paulina and Star both adamantly are disgusted by. And do remark that they're going to kill him for this, which of course is what happens at the end of the episode. We'll get to that, but in any case, Tucker is frustrated. Well, Sam, of course, is trying to convince him to stop what he's doing, but is at this point where of course Tucker has Sam dragged off by his quote-unquote guards, which he summons to drag her away and keep her from speaking out of turn. But it's at this point where we do also continue to see the fight between Danny and the Gladiator, and Danny seemingly is defeated by the Gladiator. At which point somebody shows up to reveal that the champion who will fight in his honor. But and we do see the Gladiator ghost, but we do proceed to discover that actually it's not the Gladiator ghost at all. It's as it turns out, it's Danny in disguise, which of course Tucker tells him to kneel, pointing out that he is his most honorable champion, and he is very happy to have him. But of course the Gladiator ghost. Then Danny proceeds to reveal himself to be the Gladiator, to be hiding in the Gladiator ghost's armor, revealing that he was the one who defeated him rather than the other way around. And then proceeds to point out that the fun is over, and that now it's time to get the staff back, so that they can set everything back to normal. It's at this point where Hotep Ra reveals himself as the villain, where he proceeds to take the staff away from Tucker, who obviously flees because he's unsure what's happening. But it's at this point where Hotep Ra then reveals that his end goal, that now that the Sphinx has been completed, thanks to Lancer placing the final block into place by accident, he kind of slips and falls, but isn't entirely sure. Hotep Ra then proceeds to bring the Sphinx to life, which looks exactly like Tucker. It is essentially just this massive set piece that looks exactly like Tucker. And what we find out is that it is in fact this massive, Sphinx that Hotep Ra immediately sicks onto Danny. And Danny, of course, is unable to beat it. We quickly find that out. Danny is very much struggling with battling the Tucker Sphinx. To the point where even his ghostly wail only manages to stun it for a brief period before it immediately resumes his attack. And of course, that's Danny's most powerful attack at this point. So if it's able to withstand his ghostly wail, that's obviously not very great. But in case Hotep Ra also proceeds to order that they bring him his that they bring him the quote unquote king, pointing out that that he's going to need his power. But and of course Danny quickly realizes that Hotep Ra is using the staff to bring various hieroglyphics and other things to life to create his armies, so that he can rule over them all with an iron fist. And realizing he needs to get the staff back, he proceeds to fight back against Hotep Ra, who Hotep Ra is a funny joke has we wind up finding out that Danny in the process successfully unravels him, and seemingly gets the staff away from him, only for Hotep Ra to steal the staff away back, rebuild himself, and exclaim that he is risen, which of course Danny realizes that he says every time he wakes up. But in case Danny proceeds to continue to fight back, while Tucker's currently trying to figure out the best way to deal with it, and eventually Danny realizes that he ultimately cannot beat Hotep Ra by himself. He's realizing that between the Sphinx and Hotep Ra having complete control over it, he's never going to be able to beat him. So, but he does eventually realize that Tucker might be the key. At which point he comes to Tucker and explains that, and of course, Paulina instructs Danny to do something, but he remarks that he can't. He's realizing that he stands no chance against the Sphinx because it's just too powerful. But then he realizes Tucker and the Sphinx look alike, and realizing that there's that he may have some sort of plan, he then proceeds to plead to Tucker, telling him that he thinks that the Sphinx will listen to Tucker. Tucker, of course, being frustrated because obviously nobody's listened to him this entire time. But Danny, of course, admits that he knows that, and he's sorry that nobody's been listening to him, and he admits that he should have. But it's at this point where he explains that right now Tucker is probably their best bet because currently he notes that the Sphinx is loyal to the king, and currently that's Tucker. So Tucker decides to give it a shot, and of course the Sphinx does leer down on him, but obviously being much bigger than Tucker, and very easily able to kill him, of course. But Tucker tells the Sphinx to heal rather hesitantly because he's not entirely sure it'll work. At which point it's discovered that the Sphinx does in fact listen to Tucker. It proceeds to sit on its hind legs, heals, and essentially acts like his loyal little dog, which is hilarious because it's this big hulking beast thing. But Hotep Ra is obviously very visibly frustrated about the fact that the Sphinx isn't listening to him, pointing out that he commands the staff and he commands control over it. So he again tries to get it to attack Tucker, but Tucker proceeds to tell it to roll over, and it just doesn't. Which of course frustrates Hotep Ra to no end, pointing out that he doesn't understand why the staff isn't working. But this buys Danny enough time to steal the staff from him, and remarks that seems like Hotep Ra's reign has finally come to an end. At which point Tucker then sicks the Sphinx on Hotep Ra, which chases him through the Egyptian cityscape that they've summoned, and it proceeds to destroy the city as well, and chasing after Hotep Ra. And of course, Danny is very happy with Tucker, pointing out that he seems that Tucker's learned a lesson, pointing out that he didn't need the staff to get people to listen to him. And if Tucker points out that Danny is right, but then steals the staff away from Danny, telling him that he's much more powerful with the staff, which of course Danny thinks that Tucker's about to do something really dangerous with it. But Tucker then reveals that actually, no, he's going to use it to erase. He then proceeds to decree that everything that happened didn't happen. Nobody except for him and his friends have any memory of it, and that ultimately it's going to be a big complete mind wipe, which of course winds up working. Tucker winds up wiping everybody's memories. Nobody, well, mostly. Again, we'll get to that. But most people do not, most people are very confused as to what's happened, pointing out that they don't really remember a thing. It's this point where Tucker proceeds to come forward, and then proceeds to reveal that he's throwing the election. Pointing out that he obviously has thought long and hard. He's obviously thought long and hard about what he actually wants, and realizing being in a position of power doesn't really appeal to him anymore. So for that reason, he's conceding the race to Dash, which of course Mr. Lancer is a little confused as to why Tucker suddenly came to this conclusion, but admits that he doesn't really care. But then proceeds to just award Dash the award by default, the role by default anyway. Which of course Dash is excited, and of course then proceeds to start declaring decrees and other things. Which of course Sam and Tucker are obviously Sam and Danny are obviously happy with Tucker for for not letting the staff get to his mind and control him, and of course telling him that for doing the right thing. Which of course Tucker points out that he doesn't really care about being listened to by everybody. Pointing out that obviously that's not who he is. He's just a nerd. He's just a nerd who loves his technology, and admits that that's ultimately who he's going to be. He's not a leader. He's not a leader. He's realizing that now. But of course, is this one where Danny then proceeds to flee to go and bring the staff back to the museum before it closes, so that they don't notice it's missing. And of course, Tucker. It's at this point where Tucker then declares that then asks Sam if she wants to hear more about his PDAs and other things, pointing out that he's very excited to show off some of the new ones he's got. But she proceeds to leave as well, remarking that asking Danny if she can come with. And of course he then proceeds to remark that if nobody wants to hear about his new PDAs, pointing out that they were handmade in Japan, which of course then proceeds to trigger a vestigial memory in Poliflina and Star. I told you we were going to get to that. Because what we find out is that in the episode, Tucker repeatedly refers to him as his handmaidens, which pisses them off, and that's why they're missing him. So when they supposedly hear the word handmaiden coming out of his mouth, they immediately turn hostile. And while they don't know why they're angry at him, they do decide to beat him up over it anyway. And this, of course, causes Tucker to humorously vent one last time about the fact that he's once again not being listened to. Obviously venting about the fact that the staff was supposed to give him a total mind wipe with nobody remembering anything. And yet somehow Star and Paulina still have vestigial memories of when they were Tucker's servants when they shouldn't. So that's how the episode ends, with Tucker running off to the museum as Paulina and Star proceed to get ready to tear him limb from limb for things he erased from their memory, and obviously they have no proof it actually happened. But still funny. It's still funny. But yeah, obviously this episode is about listening. It's obviously about the idea that obviously the entire plot of the episode revolves around the fact that nobody wanted to listen to Tucker. Tucker eventually got frustrated with it and used a ghost and his ancient staff thing that he has to try and take over the world and make people listen to him by force, which only gives Hotep Ra more power and enables him to take over the world. So the kind of the lesson is that listening to people when they talk is important. That's essentially what the episode is. Don't have any other deeper message behind that. It's just Tucker wanted to be listened to. Nobody wanted to listen to him. He resorted to abuse of power to get what he wanted, and that didn't wind up working out too well for him. But in any case, that is gonna do it for my review. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter in the description below. Be sure to check out my Patreon in the description below as well. It's only a couple bucks a month, and you guys get access to wonderful perks on my way of saying thanks. So be sure to check those out. Link is down in the description. And also be sure to go and check out my Twitch. I stream Saturdays and Sundays. Please go check that out. Be sure to go and check out my Discord, because we are going to be doing a horror watch-along thing next week. At the end of this week. But go check it out. At the end of this week, we are going to be watching a horror movie watch-along thing in the Discord. So please go do that and go hang out over there. I would appreciate that. And also, of course, be sure to go and check out my Patreon if you want to help support me. Go check out my Twitter. You don't have to follow me over there, but I would appreciate that. And finally, if you want to see more content from me, then make sure to check out the playlist, link on the end screen. The top playlist is Megas Month, which I did for my birthday last year. I would appreciate it if you were to go check that one out. It's a little bit of a smaller production, but I did very much enjoy making it, so I hope you guys like that one as well. Whereas the video below that is, in fact, Courage Month, which was a little bit more on brand for what I did, which is Halloween, but with Courage the Cavalry Dog. That was what I did 2 years ago. But yeah, go check either of those out. In any case, thank you guys so much for watching. And until next time, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.